We are a mere couple of weeks away from the start of the NFL season. And just like every start of NFL season, there's always many storylines, how things are going to play out from can the reigning MVP continue his dominance? Can the reigning Super Bowl champs repeat? How are the rookies going to play? Is there going to be sophomore slumps? There are storylines after storylines after storylines. And I think what we are going to do is we are going to simplify it down into NFC versus AFC. And this is a two-part series. First, we're going to start with NFC and give our predictions. My name is Matthew Raridan. I am your host, and this is the Snap Count Show. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the Snap Count Show, where I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and with me always today is David Treat,
Hey guys,
Ed Smith,
welcome y'all.
and lastly, Thaddeus Lloyd.
Yo.
Fellas, we are on the cups of a new season, and like I like to say, every day is a great day for football. I wish it was tomorrow. Yes, we are going through preseason right now, and we're starting to see how some players are looking, but we know that the real action begins week one. And guys, the Super Bowl champ is coming from the NFC. I think it's only fair that we start here with the NFC and how we think things are going to play out. And keep in mind, folks, that this is just us and our predictions, our opinions. You know, we are subject to our own opinions, and you may not agree, but we look at how things are playing, how they were last year, how the draft went, and just how we think things are going to go this year. And there's a lot of moves that happened in this offseason. There's a lot of holdouts, etc. And I think it's only fair that we start with just the NFC today. And let's just kind of jump into things. Let's go ahead and start with the NFC East. This is a very controversial division. One, you got the defending Super Bowl champs here with the Philadelphia Eagles. They pretty much laid the smackdown on the Kansas City Chiefs, denied them in hopes of a three-peat. That was a really big deal. I mean, if you were an NFL fan, you kind of saw it happening. The Chiefs were not the same dominant team as they were the years prior, whereas the Eagles, they seemed like they cracked a cheat code that no one could stop, whether you call it the tush push or just an amazing running attack by their new addition, Saquon Barkley. And you had a newcomer, an NFL rookie, in Jaden Daniels, who just took over the NFL and pretty much where he left off when he was at LSU. Size was a big question mark on how he was going to do in the NFL. And I'll tell you what, he proved all the doubters wrong in year one. A lot of people didn't know that he could do that, especially with this Washington team. There was a lot of turmoil and drama with that organization. That does bring a lot of baggage to carry on an NFL rookie, and he was able to just block it out. So you got him, and then of course always the Dallas Cowboys, the self-imposed America's team. They always bring a lot of baggage, whether it's from the ownership down to the GM. He's the same person, and from coaching staff and coaching changes and the players. So there's a lot going on with Dallas. And then lastly, in that division, we have the New York Giants. This is not any specific rankings here. I'm just talking about each team in the division here. The New York Giants, since Eli Manning has retired, have really tried to figure out what they're going to do, especially at the quarterback position. It doesn't seem like things have really worked out well. But guys, I want to start here just really with the Philadelphia Eagles. Have they really fell off. Has anything really changed with the Philadelphia Eagles? Ed, I'm going to ask you this really quick. Uh, can we see similar production that we saw last year with the Philadelphia Eagles?
There's a certain sense of lightning in a bottle, but Philadelphia, they know who they are, they execute who they are, and when they added the extra piece of Saquon Barkley, it was just inevitable. They became Thanos of the NFC. They were inevitable at some point. So I don't see a whole lot that has changed within that group that would tell me that they are going to fall off enough to where they do not run this division. As far as all the hoopla around the tush push in the offseason, who's going to play it, who's not going to play it. This is the team that really drove the play home, and they are going to continue to use it. And as long as it becomes fair and legal to do it on the offensive side, but not on the defensive side, I think Philadelphia does have a distinct advantage over just about anybody else that uh, they have on their schedule.
Yeah, it is definitely a clear advantage with that maneuver, the tush push, because they could be 2 yards away, and it's almost a given. I don't really think any teams have really shown a means to stop it, and it just continues to dominate in the game of football.
It really is like trying to stop Uncle Sal at the Thanksgiving Day table. It's it. There's no getting in his way.
No.
He's going to make it there. I don't care how far away on the other side of the kitchen he is. He's going to make it there, and that's exactly what that offensive line is doing.
Yeah, there's not only a stiff arm on TV that day. There's a stiff arm at at the kitchen table on Thanksgiving. David, last week we mentioned this and infamous sophomore slump. Jaden Daniels, I didn't really see a whole lot of weakness in him last year. Uh, but could that change this year? Can we see, his kryptonite? Is anything going to slow him down? And will we see that infamous sophomore slump, you think?
I don't think we will see a particular slump from Jaden Daniels. Now, I know last week in that quarterback list, I had him in the solid tier below the can win a Super Bowl. Obviously, solid is still can still be very good. And the reason why I think Daniels will not have a sophomore slump is because look at the offseason that the Redskins had. They had arguably the best offseason of any team in the league, especially when they brought in guys like Laramie Tunsil to anchor that offensive line, and also bringing in Debo Samuel from the 49ers. I mean, what better way to make sure that your star franchise quarterback can continue to succeed in the league than by bringing those two guys in? So I have a lot of high hopes for Jaden Daniels, but also especially for the Redskins as a team.
Yeah, excuse me. And yes, it shows you the confidence and the willing to build around Jaden Daniels, especially while he's on his rookie contract, bringing in someone to help beef up that offensive line and another wide receiver weapon. And if they're able to get things done with Scary Terry, that is a great 1-2 weapon. Should Debo Samuel stay healthy? So Washington, I feel like, does have a bright future. And don't forget on their defense too. One of the great additions that they were able to get last year was Bobby Wagner. And Bobby Wagner, I think, to me, did not really show much signs of age. So
He's an
that was
ageless
impressive.
he's an
Yeah.
ageless wonder.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. And that was an amazing pickup. I mean, a lot of teams looked at him, but they weren't sure because of his age if he could still do it. And boy, did he prove that he still can. So, Washington, I do agree with you, David, that I am not expecting much of a sophomore slump from Jaden Daniels, but I'll get more in depth here soon with how I'm feeling on all these rankings. Thaddeus, the one thing that I do want to kind of toss over to you is the New York Giants. One interesting thing that they did this offseason is they're almost like they're the Cleveland Browns of the NFC. They brought in every quarterback they could. One day they sign Jameis Winston, the next it's Russell Wilson. Then they trade up and get Jackson Dart in the draft. Uh, are they just kind of just scraping for pieces, or do you think they really have some type of quarterback plan in New York?
It's hard to gauge that because they've had Daniel Jones the past couple of years, and now he's gone. They finally got rid of him, but now it's up. The pressure is on Dable. The pressure is really on Dable. Now they weren't the ones to draft Jones, but they were kind of culpable in how his career turned out the past couple of years. So they are kind of scraping that barrel to see which quarterbacks can save their jobs right now in New York. And that quarterback battle is between those three: Dart, Wilson, and Winston. And you have three different kinds of quarterbacks. You have Russell Wilson, the established veteran who has unfortunately, due to his playing style, has declined the past couple of years. Now he's still serviceable. Like he didn't have terrible numbers when he was in Pittsburgh or in Denver, but he is an aging quarterback whose playing style is not really meant for aged quarterbacks. I believe he's 36, 35, 36 now. And then you have Jameis Winston, who is, well, no matter what kind of game he plays, is probably the most entertaining quarterback to watch because he'll throw four touchdowns, but at the same time throw four interceptions in the same game. So you never know what you're going to get out of him. He's one of the most inconsistent starters probably ever. And then you have Jackson Dart, the upcoming rookie. So, he looks promising, I guess. He had the exciting preseason week one. So it remains to be seen and who's going to be taking it. I think Russell Wilson's going to be starting week one for him. He's the most consistent person, and he can distribute the ball fairly enough. So we're going to see what's going to happen with the Giants.
Yeah, that we will. It's just very interesting situation that when it transpired, especially in the draft, just wasn't quite sure what direction they were heading. As far as the Dallas Cowboys go, this offseason, they made several waves, and one of them is acquiring George Pickens from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now they have a two-headed monster with C.D. Lamb and George Pickens, and me, being a Steelers fan, I've seen George Pickens play, and he is a phenomenal talent, but unfortunately, his head could get in the way of his foot, and he he could be that guy. He really could if he can settle in and he could get his head in the right affairs. Will that happen in Dallas, where the lights shine bright on you? You are on a big stage at all times. We're gonna find out. If you were to ask me yes or no right now, my answer will be no, and that is no ill will towards George Pickens for his departure from Pittsburgh, but it's based on his track record and what he has shown. Should he fix that? That could be a very, very scary duo between CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, but that is yet to be determined. As far as the running offense goes, last year was just abysmal, and I think this year is going to be the same. I don't really think they've done anything to help that, and same thing with their defense. It just seems to be the same cycle over and over and over again for Dallas. And they have yet to, go to the playoffs and win a game. So surely you ought to change something. And yes, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here being a Steelers fan, but we will get to that next week. But something needs to change, and you're not seeing much change at all when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. There just needs to be a total refresh. And until that happens, I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to continue to show the same results year and year again. And it's going to end with a playoff loss. So, guys, let's get down to the bottom of it here. I'm going to go ahead and give you my predictions on how I think the NFC East is going to end at the year. No records here. I'm just going to go in order. I do think, once again, the Philadelphia Eagles take the NFC East. They are going to continue to play the ball that they know succeeds well, and they are just going to continue to succeed with it. Last year, we did see a very close, ending and matchup when it came to Washington, and I think it's going to play like that again this year. But I do see the Eagles taking number one in this division, followed by Washington at number two, and I only see about a one game difference between here. So there could be a late season matchup between these two teams that does decide this division. But give me Philly at 1, Washington at 2, followed by the Cowboys at 3. I think the Cowboys are going to be several games behind Washington here. I just don't see the Cowboys that we saw a couple years ago with a great record going to the playoffs, lose to the Niners in the first round because they have no clock management. I mean, I could see that happening again, but maybe not the record. So, yeah, I got Dallas at 3, followed by the Giants at 4. They're going to continue to show me who they are as they have done. So, give me New York at 4. So, Eagles 1, Washington 2, Dallas 3, followed by New York 4. Ed, do you have very similar results in this division?
No, not at all.
Nope.
Nope, not at all.
I think I know where it's going to change. Let's see.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Uh, I actually have the Washington football team. I want to say Redskins. Uh, that's just I. I'm old enough. That's who they are. Uh, I have Washington taking this division because the two question marks that I see right now of Debo Samuel, who was injury prone last year, and McLaughlin, who's been holding out, holding in, whatever you call it nowadays. They're going to be on the field this entire season, and when it comes down to this last month of Philadelphia's schedule, they play Washington twice and they go to Buffalo. That is a horrific end of year stretch for a team that's going to be competing for the division. So I think Washington, they're going to be neck and neck with Philadelphia for the division. So it's going to be Washington and then Philadelphia. I actually think the Giants will figure some stuff out with Brian Daboll and a more experienced quarterback that can manage the offense and make it to be number 3 in the NFC East. And the Cowboys, let's remember, first year head coach hired from within, Schottenheimer, with no running game, which his offense is based off the running game and play action. And you're going to have George Pickens and CD Lamb out there, but they're going to get doubled on both sides because there's no threat to take it off. And with the issue with Michael Parsons that's going on in the offseason, how bought in he's going to be for this season, we just don't know at this point, and I doubt it's going to be at the same level as it was his second and third year in this league.
Okay. Okay. David, your thoughts?
So the way that I'm going to give my predictions for each of these divisions, I'm going to go from fourth to first. So in fourth place, I've got the Cowboys, 3-14. That team is a joke. Jerry's world is a circus. The Dak experiment is over. In third place, I've got the Giants. I've got them at 10-7. I think the Giants are going to have a similar year that the Texans did a couple of years ago when they were led by rookie sensations on both sides of the ball. So with Jackson Dart leading the way on offense and Abdul Carter leading the way on defense, yes, I know that Russell Wilson is going to be the day one starter, but I predict that when all is said and done, this is going to be Jackson Dart's team. Now, as for 2-1, it's been many years since the NFC East last had a repeat winner, and that trend is going to continue. So my predictions are the exact same as Ed's. I've got the Eagles second, and I've got the Redskins first. So I've got the Eagles at 11-6, and I've got the Redskins at 13-4. The reason why I think the Eagles are going to take a step back is let's remember that their offensive coordinator Kellen Moore is not there anymore as he got promoted to head coach for the New Orleans Saints. And then also on the defensive side of things, the loss of Brandon Graham through retirement is going to leave a massive hole, not just so much in terms of production, but he's been the leader of that defense for so many years, and that's going to make a huge void. So again, my prediction's the exact same as Ed's: Redskins, Eagles, Giants, and Cowboys.
All right, all right. Yeah, things are definitely starting to heat up in this NFC East. Thaddeus, I'm definitely interested to hear what you have to say.
I actually have the same ranking that you do, Matt, which
Okay.
was the same ranking as last year. I got the Eagles at one. Their roster is just too good. It's too insanely talented. Yeah, they lost Kellen Moore, but if you run basically the same system, it's going to be effective because you can really do anything with the number one offensive line in the league. Um, so I have them at one. I have Washington at two. I, I have my concerns. Debo, as a 49ers fan, he was on the decline. He's really only had one good year. When he's healthy, yeah, he can be a dynamic player, but you have to use him right. And if if history has taught us anything, now we saw if you've seen any pictures of Debo out of training camp, you'd see he's laid on the pounds. He's had a couple of donuts, let's just say. The same thing happened last season with Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen went to the Bears, and people were like, "Oh, he's had a little too many of those donuts too." And well, look what happened. He kind of fell off a cliff too. So I am worried about Debo Samuel. Now it was a good trade as far as both parties were concerned. The Niners didn't, got some stuff for him, but the Commanders didn't give up too much, in my opinion, for him. So it was a good trade. If it doesn't work out for him, it's not that terrible. But I honestly don't think it's going to work out as well as some people think he is. Um, and obviously the Terry McLaurin situation is still ongoing. Larry Tunsil will definitely help their offensive line, but it's just they have a little bit of a tougher schedule than the Eagles, in my opinion, compared to their relative strength of where they are currently. I still have them going like the same record. I have them going 10-7. The Eagles 14-3. They're going to face a tougher schedule at the end, but the Eagles they're going to outlast the Commanders. And then I have the Cowboys at 3. I just really don't believe in Schottenheimer. And I have the Giants at 1 now. In theory, I have more faith in the Giants because Russell Wilson can lead a more efficient offense, I believe, than Daniel Jones can. And if Abdul Carter is anything, what people are saying is that defensive line literally might be the best defensive line in the entire NFL. It might be scary, but they have an extremely tough schedule, despite being a last place team. So that's why I have them at the bottom.
And if
Yeah,
I could just rebuttal one quick thing that you said about Debo Samuel in Washington. While he was in San Francisco, he was being asked to be the most dynamic player on the offense. That is not a problem with him being next to Jaden Daniels. So the combination of the two being such Swiss Army knives between the both of them, when they're both on the field, it's going to be much more difficult to just hone in on Debo's skill set versus just Jaden Daniels' skill set.
yeah, no, absolutely, and I love that we're kind of at a stone wall here because of me and Thaddeus have the same exact prediction, just as well as Ed and David go. So, I like that because it's going to kind of even things out how we are looking at things. And I do want to see how this division does turn out. But Thaddeus, I really appreciate you mentioning that defensive line for New York because Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau, that is pretty scary there. Should they
And
all
Sexy
stay healthy?
Dexter,
Yeah,
top
yeah, Dexter Lawrence. I
top
can't
three
forget. Yeah,
defensive tackle.
yeah, so that is a very impressive defensive line there. So we're gonna see how that plays out. Ed, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this over to you. We're gonna talk about the NFC North. So go ahead and take that away.
Sure. In the NFC North, coming out of last year, the Detroit Lions, they just own this division. It is, without question, the best division in football right now. When you have the Detroit Lions, who ended the season at 15-2, Minnesota ended the season at 14-3, the Packers ended at 11-6. All three were playoff teams, and then you had the Chicago Bears being where they belong at 5-12. Well, as you can see. Uh, now, when Dan Campbell came into Detroit, boasting this tough, gritty attitude, everybody kind of laughed and joked that, oh, you're going to bite people's knees off at when you're on the ground and never stop and everything. Well, he's done exactly that with that franchise. He has completely changed the fortune of what it is to be a football fan in Motown. And kudos for him for doing it. And with that in mind, he's he's really elevated what is expected from Minnesota and Green Bay, Chicago being where they're supposed to be in the cellar. Uh, now, Minnesota last year they caught lightning in a bottle with Sam Darnold. Who knows how in the world the quarterback whisperer got in his ear and turned him into a not only serviceable but a good quarterback in the NFL because he was just known for throwing the ball when he was in New York. Now he was being asked to be a true quarterback that can lead a team through the playoffs. Didn't quite happen because he got exposed at the end, and now he's off in Seattle. Green Bay, everybody expects them to be there every year. They seem to be there every year. We have our third quarterback in a row that we believe in as a Packers fan, along with all the pieces being put together. And then Chicago, they had to let go of their head coach Matty Berflus and go ahead and bring in some fresh blood for the Windy City in that respect. Now, going into this season, there's a sense that this could be even a harder division in football than it was last year because there's expectation in Chicago for Caleb Williams to actually do better under the new head coach Ben Johnson than he did last year. But it's the same thing with Chicago quarterbacks. They have a quarterback, but they change the coordinators and the head coaches every year, or they have a head coach and they change the quarterbacks every year. That is never a good recipe when you're trying to gain consistency. So while they may improve, they're not going to be much better than they were last year. In turn, Minnesota, I think, makes a severe drop in where they were from last year to this year because they do plan on starting J.J. McCarthy, but he was out all last year, so he's essentially a second-year rookie quarterback taking over for a franchise that has weapons. You've got Aaron Jones, you got Justin Jefferson, you got Hawkinson, you've got players on that side of the ball that he can distribute to, and that's what he was when he was at Michigan. It's just that the speed of the game after taking a year off is just totally different than what he saw when he was in college. So severe drop there, which leaves Green Bay and Detroit. I think it will be a neck and neck combination going forward through this season. Who's going to take over this division? Green Bay, with the draft in Green Bay, picked up Matthew Golden, their first wide receiver in the first round since I believe it was 2002. Javon Curse, if I remember correctly. Uh, and that Jordan Love with a better weapon that is healthy compared to what we've seen out of Christian over the past few years. You got Romeo Dobbs, you got Jaden Reed. Just so many weapons, and the defense is solid enough to make it stick. Detroit, they are still Detroit at this point. They are solid on both sides of the ball. They just ran out of steam on defense. They ran out of bodies on defense going through the playoffs last year. That's why they didn't make the Super Bowl over the Eagles. So my prediction overall is to have Green Bay and Detroit on in 1A, really, but I do give the edge to Detroit just because they've been there and that experience from last year leaves them hungry to win that division again. So maybe by a game, Detroit's going to beat out Green Bay, Minnesota's going to fall back, and Chicago is going to be in the cellar where they belong.
Makes sense to me. I mean, I'm pretty much almost actually, I think I am in full agreement with you, Ed. I do think that the Lions are going to be the number one team in that division, but only by a slim margin over Green Bay, who I have at number two. The thing with Detroit is Jared Goff came there, and I think really it helped resurrect his career. By no means am I saying he was horrible. He did bring a team to a Super Bowl after all in LA, but he has done phenomenal. Granted, I don't know how he's going to do this year without Ben Johnson. But when you have him, you have a two-headed monster with Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery behind him, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. That is a very, very lethal offense. So I could see why Detroit is going to continue to have the same results going into this year, followed by Green Bay there at number two. I do think the what I want to see as well is, and Ed, you know you can attest to this, is how is McKinney going to do in his second year there? How's that defense going to hold up? And if they could continue to hold strong and not phase out like Detroit's defense did last year, and Jordan Love, coming from a thumb procedure, I think that they'll be fine there. Minnesota, they still got great weapons, a change at quarterback, though, with J.J. McCarthy, but I do have them slightly better than Chicago. I do think Chicago is going to make great strides this year, especially with Ben Johnson there. Caleb Williams is going to have a great second year. I really do believe so, but I still have them because they are the Bears at four. David, are you in agreement with this?
So I think we're in agreement for fourth and third. So in fourth place, there's at six. I think it's great that you've got faith in Caleb Williams. I don't have any faith in him at all. Third place, I've got the Vikings at 7-10. I think the Vikings are going to take a massive, massive, massive step back. I think they caught lightning in a bottle last year, like Ed said, I think. And without Sam Darnold, I think they're going to crash back to reality. As far as second and first, so I've actually got the Lions in second place. I've got the Lions at 11-6. I think they'll still have a solid year, but I do expect them to take a step back. And part of the reason is, and I don't have any research to back this up, so I could be out of my mind, but I find that a lot of the times, when a team is by far the best team in the NFL, they tend to take a step back the next year. And I'm not just talking about in terms of, oh, they were so good that, that they can only go down from there because that's how good they were. No, I mean just in terms of like overall production and that when teams have such a good year, they they take a natural regression the next year, and that's kind of what I'm expecting with the Lions. They'll still have a great roster. They'll still have a solid season, and I'm just not expecting the same 15-2 dominance that they had last year. Which means, Ed, I've got the Packers number one. I think they'll win that division with the 14-3 record, and I think Jordan Love. I think this is going to be his breakout year, and I don't say that to imply that he was bad. Obviously, since he became the full-time starter, he's been great, but the last couple of seasons, he's really been more of a second half kind of guy rather than a full season kind of guy. And I think for the first time in his career, you're going to see Jordan Love actually be consistently good from start to finish. So Packers 1, Lions 2, Vikings 3, and the Bears 4.
The Bears.
Where they belong.
Yes. By the
That
way, fun fact. Apparently, the Bears are the only team in the NFL to never have a 4,000-yard passer.
all right, I can see why. Thaddeus.
Yeah, that was it was really funny because when the first American Pope was elected, it was crazy. In the 2,000-year history of the Church, we've never had an American Pope, but we had an American Pope before the Bears had a 4,000-yard passer. But it's also
Thank
funny
you,
too.
Annie Agar.
Yeah, well,
Give
Pope
credit
is
where
from
credit's
Chicago too, so
Yeah.
hopefully he'll bring some luck. Um, but actually, this is very interesting because all four of us are going to have different predictions. I have the Packers winning the division by one game over the Lions. I just think the Lions are going to take a step back. They obviously have a really good roster. Defensively, they're going to be reinforced. Aiden Hutchinson's coming back from injury. However, with the addition of defense, they also lose on offense because obviously they lost Ben Johnson and the defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, to the Jets. And they also lost their center, Frank Ragnow, to retirement, which is a massive piece on that offensive line. I would be very concerned because the center, you could debate maybe a left tackle, but could be the most dependable position on that offensive line. It's the one who makes out the calls, helps out the quarterback, and they're losing a all pro at center. So that would be very cause for concern for me. They've still got a really good roster, but that's why I got the Packers winning over the Lions. As far as third and fourth place, I have the Bears basically at the same. I still the book is still out on Caleb Williams for me. I really didn't like his rookie campaign. You bring in Ben Johnson, I mean that's good and all, but what's going to happen to the defense? Matt Eberflus has shown to be at least competent on the defensive side of things. Overall, he just couldn't help it with the offense. So that's a wash. And then the Vikings, you got J.J. McCarthy coming in. There are definitely concerns about it, and they're definitely not going to be a 14-win team this year. But I really think, obviously, he's basically a rookie. He's going to struggle early on in the season, but I really think the Vikings are going to come back in the second half of the season. Their schedule seems to be much easier than the first half. And people are forgetting that defense was a prime reason that that team was so good last year. It wasn't just because Sam Darnold resurrected his career. That defense was actually top three last year. And they kept Brian Flores, and he's shown to be a really good defensive coordinator. So I expect them to take third place in this division.
I never would have thought that I would hear someone say that a team will be worse without Sam Darnold. So, but I've seen crazy things in life. But Sam Darnold did do an amazing job last year in Minnesota. Earned himself a big contract in Seattle. So I do want to see how he does there. But as far as this division goes, how's Minnesota going to do without him?
And
So
the other part about the Detroit situation is they lost both of their coordinators.
yeah.
They really promoted from within to fill those voids, but it's still a different person. So just getting that back in place because it's in house. That's why I still have Detroit one game ahead of the Packers because it is still a consistent message throughout that building versus bringing in somebody completely different.
Yeah.
Well, I also had a thing about that too, though, is because people were like, okay, well, they got new coordinators, right? In-house coordinators. Why couldn't it be like the Eagles last year? Well, the Eagles last year, 2 years ago, they had terrible coordinators. They got two brand new ones, won the Super Bowl. However, with those two coordinators, they were both proven veteran coordinators who had success in the past, especially with Vic Fangio. So I have a lot of concerns with new coordinators who had barely any coaching experience at all. Like only, I believe the new offensive coordinator for the Lions was an offensive coordinator once for the 49ers, I believe like 10 years ago or something. That's really been their only experience. So I have a lot of concern about that.
Aaron Glenn, he's the head coach for the Jets now, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Typical Jets, always going for defensive head coaches.
Come on, Rex Ryan, man, he's amazing.
Let's go get a gosh darn snack.
Yeah. Oh
I mean,
man.
let's not forget Belichick was the coach of the Jets for 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yes, that's very true. So, NFC North. Yes, we may have all different predictions, but I think when it comes to the top two teams, we are in agreement when it comes to the Lions and the Packers. So, we may be going now from one of the best divisions in the NFL to possibly one of the worst. David, I'm going to have you go ahead and cover this NFC South and what we're expected to see down there.
So when it comes to the NFC South. Let's be real. The Bucks have owned this division for the past few years, and I don't expect that to change one bit. Baker Mayfield is far and away the best roster, or excuse me, the best quarterback in that division, and the Bucks roster is quite easily the best in the division. So I think as far as just how the teams are going to place in their standings, which I'll get to it in a bit. But obviously, surprise, surprise, I think the Bucks are going to win the division. I'm just gonna throw that out there right now. And then you got the Falcons. Obviously, Penix is going to be the full-time starter now, and they've got some nice pieces. They've got some nice offensive weapons, but I don't expect anything special to come out of Atlanta. The two teams that I really want to kind of talk about in pretty great detail are the Panthers and the Saints. So I actually think the Panthers are going to be one of the best surprise stories of the NFL, because you look at last year, and you look at how the Panthers did in the second half of the season, and you look at the improvements they made, like not so much in terms of wins, because in the second half of the season they were still 4-5, but they were in all but two of those games, other than a blowout loss to us and another blowout loss to a team I can't remember. They were in pretty much every single game, including only losing by 3 to the eventual AFC champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. And you also look at Bryce Young. He got off to a pretty bad start, but in the second half of the season, he became a much improved quarterback. I think his numbers were 12 touchdown passes and just 3 interceptions after their game in Munich, right? Um, and then as far as the Saints go, so, oh boy, I do not like the Saints roster at all. In fact, I think the Saints are going to be the worst team in the NFL. I think they're going to have the worst record in the NFL, and I think the front office is going to tank. Not so much in terms of getting in through the headset of the head coach and saying like, "Hey, make sure you blow this play," or "Make sure you blow this coverage," or whatever. No, I think the Saints have made it very clear through the offseason that they're going to embrace the tank, and I think they're going to build for the future. And, why do I say that? Well, let's take a look at what they've done, or rather what they've not done through the offseason, right? They did not, they really didn't address their wide receiver needs at all, other than bringing an aging Brandon Cooks back to the team, who, by the way, hasn't had a 1,000-yard season in like 3 or 4 years, right? The offensive line, which was one of the worst in the NFL, last year. Yeah, Kelvin Banks Jr. was definitely a nice pickup in the draft, but that's still not going to be enough. And Kelvin Banks Jr. wasn't brought on to protect Spencer Rattler, and I'll get into that in a bit, right? And then the defense. They brought in Julian Blackman and Justin Reed to help on the secondary, and those were nice pickups. But other than those guys, the defense isn't going to be anything special. So, circling back, I said that Kelvin Banks Jr. was not brought on to protect Spencer Rattler. No. Kelvin Banks Jr. was brought on to protect a certain guy who's in college, has a lot of high hopes, born and raised in New Orleans. Yep, you know who I'm talking about, Ed. I think the Saints are tanking to get New Orleans guy Arch Manning. So um, so as far as record predictions go, I've got the Saints in fourth place at 2-15. I think for the first time in years, I think they're finally going to embrace the tank to get New Orleans native Arch Manning. In third place, I've got the Panthers at 10-7. Second place, I've got the Falcons at what do I? Oh wait, actually, sorry, I've got this mixed up. So I'm in fourth place. In third place, I've got the Falcons at 9-8. I've got the Panthers at 10-7, and I've got the Bucks. Like I said, I think the Bucks have quite easily the best roster. They have inarguably the best quarterback in that division, but I think they only quote unquote only win 11 games because of coaching blunders from Todd Bowles.
Yeah, David, you bring up two big things here. First, obviously, the big shocker with where you have the Panthers sitting in that division. That is a massive jump for them. I could kind of see your reasoning based off of last year's numbers and how they were in most of the games, even though they did end up losing. So, how's that going to play this year? Are they going to continue with that competitive edge in each and every game? Well, we will definitely see that. But the biggest thing that I wanted to bring up is yes, tanking. This next year's draft, we all know, is a very, very big draft on the quarterback side. Okay. Uh, Arch Manning being the top name, if he's going to, be in the draft or if he's going to stay another year. But it's not just him, too. You've got Drew Aller. You got uh, Cade Klubnik coming out of Clemson. I mean, there is a lot of quarterbacks.
And
Uh,
Garrett
Garrett
Nussmeier from
Nussmeyer,
LSU. Yep.
yeah. So who is going to tank? That's going to be a question that we're going to have for another episode because I do think there are a couple options, but then there are some that, really aren't options at all, even though they still may end up with one of the worst records. But we'll talk about that at a different time. But I'm glad that you brought that up because the Saints very well may be embracing the tank, just as you said. As far as the divisional rankings go, I'll go with mine here. Slight disagreement I have here. I do have the Bucks, and I'm in agreement with you. They will clearly win this division. I think we'll probably all be in agreement there. Followed by Michael Penix Jr. and the Falcons. Bijan Robinson, if he's healthy, I do think that he adds another edge to that team. And I do want to see how Michael Penix Jr. does. If they allow him to play his game, I think that they could do really well on offensive side. Followed by the Panthers. It's tough. I wanted to put the Panthers in last because they have shown me, the last couple of years that they are a last place team. But I think with the Saints and how horrible their roster is, and them possibly embracing that tank, I have to go with them at 4. Thaddeus, where are you sitting at in agreement with this?
I think I mightly. I think I might mostly be agreeing with David here. Obviously, I got the Bucks at 1. Baker is the best quarterback in this division right now. But then I do have the Panthers second. I Now it depends. The Panthers could be like the Packers and Jordan Love, where he had the resurgence of the second half of the season, and it could be true. All it took was a little Andy Dalton car accident to get him back into gear, but who knows? But yeah, the Falcons. I really don't know how I feel about the Falcons. Last year, I had them winning the division with Kirk Cousins, and that probably worked for like 3 weeks, and then it just died. So it's really gonna. We saw Michael Penix in the last 2 games. I really don't have a gauge on him, so the book's out on him. I'll have them third, and then obviously I have the Saints at last. They tearing down probably going to be one of the worst teams. Now I do have them winning at least a couple games because Kellen Moore is a pretty good offensive guy. Go Boise State, but yeah, it's a rebuild year for them definitely. So this year for this division, it's one of the weaker divisions, people know, but as far as predictions go, this seems pretty straightforward, just probably flipping the Falcons and the Panthers, really.
Yeah, I mean, they rid themselves of Dennis Allen finally, but I still think they will finish last. Ed?
I I'm having a little more difficulty just handing this division over to the Bucks, just because we don't know how big of a step Michael Penix Jr. is going to make in his second season, especially with the surgence of Drake London. You've got Bijan Robinson. Uh, you've got Tyler Algier. You've got pieces there that, if they gel together as a young core and grow together, they could easily be the surprise team of the NFC and possibly take over the division. Even if it's just neck and neck, that would be a severe win for the city of Atlanta, for the Falcons as a franchise. Do I think they're going to do it? I don't think they will, but I'm not ready to just hand the division over to the Bucks. I think maybe it's a 2-game spread between the Bucks and the Falcons this year. Carolina is going to make strides and get better, not and get better in a better, more of a game swing than what the Bears will. The Saints, they're gonna the fans are gonna go back to wearing paper bags on their heads like they did for 30 years. It's just that big of a garbage uh, situation. This is the world of the salary cap. They tried to hang on to so much talent for so long in New Orleans that they are in salary cap hell right now. So they really have nothing to work with in trying to rebuild that roster and that franchise as a whole. So they're going to be there for a couple of years. Yes, tank for Arch. That'll get butts in the seats in New Orleans, and there's no disputing that point, David. I do think that Atlanta does have a shot, but they're just a year away. They remind me a lot of the Oilers when you had Steve McNair and Eddie George and Dyson there and Frank Wycheck. That young core grew up to be a team that made it all the way to the Super Bowl, losing by 1 yard. Atlanta, it feels very similar to me in that respect. So I am going to give it to the Buccaneers, but only by a game or two over the Falcons. And then you've got Carolina and then the Aints.
The Aints, yes, it is. Yes. Really quick, let's go ahead and switch over here to the NFC West. I think this could be a very interesting division. I think that some of our predictions here could actually be quite different. Thaddeus, you
Yeah.
are a Niners fan, and I'm going to have let you take the floor here on the NFC West.
Okay, the NFC West will be one of the more intriguing divisions. Now, it's not the best division, but it is one of the better divisions. Now, the problem with it is the the, the thing this division is most dependent on is injuries. The two best teams in the division, I'm a little bit of a homer, but hear me out. The 49ers and the Rams are the best teams. Now, everyone is expecting the Rams to win. Now, however, now if you compare the two, you would think the Rams would win more. But even me saying as a homer, I do think the 49ers will take this division if everyone's healthy. If the 49ers lose either Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Trent Williams, or Christian McCaffrey, if they lose even one of them for at least more than 8 games, they will not have a winning record. That is how top heavy this team is. And it kind of goes for the same with the Rams. Now everyone expects the Rams to win. They have Puka. They just got Devontae Adams. Their big thing is Matthew Stafford. If he goes down, this team is kind of doomed because their backup is Jimmy G. And, well, let's say I have some experience with Jimmy G. Um, if Jimmy G is not in the perfect system, it won't work. And Matthew Stafford has actually really propelled Sean McVay's system. So that team, despite having a good nucleus for their defense, is kind of done for if Matthew Stafford goes down for at least I'd say 6 to 7 games. Then you have the Cardinals, who it's the team everyone forgets about because they're way out in the desert. But they have a good team. Like I think they have a really good roster. It's just the inconsistency of Kyler Murray. Like what year is this? This is year 6, I believe, year 7, and he's shown. I think he's shown his ceiling and his floor, and he can't be consistent. His highs going to be really high, but his lows are going to be really lows, and you just can't be consistent enough for them to make the playoffs. They're still going to have like a good record, but not that. As for the Seahawks, you get rid of Geno Smith, you bring in Sam Darnold, younger player, but he's still an inconsistent guy. Like he'll give you a couple stretches, he'll give you stretches of weeks where he'll be really good, but then right when you need him, he's gonna fail. And that's what he's shown. That's what he showed last year with the Vikings, and you just can't trust it. And that Seahawks defense, while they have Mike McDonald is their head coach, that defense did not really perform last year. Plus, they don't have the pieces that much. Now, they're not the worst defense in the league, they're just a middling defense. So I don't have a lot of faith of them having a winning record. And they do have some weapons on the offense. Kenneth Walker is a really good running back if he can stay healthy. JSN is a top slot receiver in this league. However, they got Cooper Kupp as their number two, who is also a slot receiver. It's kind of redundant to have two of the same receiver. And their number three is Marquez Valdez Scantling, I believe, who is just a one-trick pony. So it's very hard for me to have faith in the Seahawks. So that's where I have it. Now, if both teams are healthy, the 49ers and the Rams at the top, I'm going to take the Niners, even though the Rams overall probably have the better roster, because the 49ers, by far, by according to last year's metrics, these are last year's metrics, the easiest schedule. So that's why I'm giving the edge of the 49ers over the Rams. So that's why I'm having the 49ers 1, Rams 2, Cardinals 3, and the Seahawks at the bottom of the division.
Yeah, I mean, it is dire, I think, especially in this division, that if one player gets injured, a team could suffer big time. And you hit the nail right on it, Thaddeus, by mentioning that, because we've seen it actually time and time again with the Niners. Trent Williams is out. You could expect that Niners team to not look good at all, and it's true. It's crazy how one player can do that, but it has happened from time and time again, and that is actually kind of similar to why I have my rankings kind of close to you. But I do have a wrench that I'm going to throw in here. I am going to have the Niners at 1. I think that the Niners are going to have a better year this year. Having an easier schedule based off last year's metrics does help them. If they could stay healthy, the Niners do take this division. Number 2 is where actually I do change things up. I think you guys have all actually mentioned, quarterbacks having a great resurgence or a come out type of year. I'm having Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is going to be my quarterback this year to really take a leap. I think having Marvin Harrison Jr. there is a tremendous step in the right direction. But if Trey McBride stays healthy, that he is a top tight end in this league. James Conner is actually a solid running back that can put up consistent numbers as well. I think that Cardinals team does take a nice little leap this year into the second spot in this division. The Rams are going to drop off a little bit. Stafford is dealing with a big injury here, all right? He is not young like he used to be, so these injuries are tougher for a quarterback of his age. So that's why I have the Seahawks dropping down to 3. I'm sorry, the Rams dropping down to 3 in this division because of that. I do think they're going to fall back a little bit here, followed by the Seahawks at 4. Like you said, Thaddeus, this defense, even though Mike McDonald is that guy for defense, it just hasn't seen it. So until he shows me that, that's why I'm going to have the Seahawks here at 4. David, your response to these predictions?
So at 7 and 10, I've got the Seahawks. Sam Darnold is going to be their starting quarterback most likely, but as I've talked about before, I think he caught lightning in a bottle with the Vikings, and you look at how his career has gone. I mean, I think we're all going to see that last year was the outlier, and I think he's going to crash back to earth, and so are the Seahawks. So in third place, we got the Rams at 8 and 9. Stafford is old, and listen, the Rams won the division last year, but they weren't even that good last year. They had a negative point differential, and they had a second half surge, which was a big reason why they were able to win the division. But it was one of those cases where they clearly weren't as good as their record showed. So I've got them in third place at 9. As far as the top 2 teams, you're going to be surprised by who my number 1 team is, and you're going to know by who my second place team is. I've got the 49ers in second place. Obviously, they're pretty much everybody's pick to be the bounce back team, and they definitely have a roster good enough for a bounce back. 10 and 7. I think the days of San Francisco dominance are pretty much over at this point. Not saying that they're not going to win a Super Bowl in the Kyle Shanahan era. I'm just saying that the years of, penciling in the 49ers as a top pick, those days are done. So, first place, I've got Cardinals. That's definitely one of my more surprising predictions. And Matthew, you kind of dove into the offensive side of things, but I want to dive into the other side of the ball. Now, Thaddeus, you mentioned Kyler Murray being inconsistent. I agree. Kyler Murray is inconsistent, which is why the Cardinals are going to be a first place team, not because of Kyler Murray and their offense, although I think, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., those are great offensive weapons. No, no, no. They're going to be a first place team because of that defense. I think they have become a defensive minded team under Jonathan Gannon, because let's not forget that when Gannon came in from the Eagles, the Cardinals' defense improved drastically from 2023 to 2024. And in this year's draft, they pretty much went all in on defense. I think only one of their players wasn't a defensive player. But other than him, all their guys drafted were defensive players. And you look at guys that they brought in through the draft like Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, Josh Sweat, who was an absolutely massive pickup from the Super Bowl champion, the Eagles. I think the Cardinals are going to be a top 10 defensive unit. I think you could even argue top 5, and that defense is going to be the reason why they take the division crown.
Those are great points, David. Really great there. And I'm so glad you had mentioned his first name because I almost called him Rich Gannon for a second. So,
Yeah. And then one more thing I wanted to add. It's really funny with the 49ers. We'll see if the trend breaks, but if it's every other year, it's either they get injured or last in the division or they make the conference championship. It's happened every other year the past 6 years now. So this is supposed to be the conference championship year, so we're gonna have to see what happens.
sounds like the San Francisco Giants in baseball from 2010 to 2014. All the even years, baby. Ed.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty much in agreement. Seattle sucks this year. I mean, and it has to do with Sam Darnold and the fact that they're also in somewhat financial hell when it comes to trying to rebuild that franchise. And it's really not even their fault because they tried to hang on to the guys that got them to their success and held on to them for way too long without turning over the roster like you should in the salary cap era. And it's finally come to the Roosters have come to hatch at the as we say in the South. So Seattle, they're going to be bottom of the division. I'm actually going to put the Niners third in this division. It's it has to do with a couple things. One, you lose your most dynamic playmaker outside of Christian McCaffrey, who was hurt all last year. We don't know if Christian McCaffrey is going to stay healthy this year. Debo Samuel's gone. Brandon Ayuk, he was happy for a while, but then got injured again. So that's another question mark coming back in. Your roster's aging, and you've got potential to get back to that former glory on defense, but with who? That's my question mark. Who's going to wind up getting hurt out of this group? You mentioned it to begin with. Injuries are the problem. Well, you have a bunch of players that are eggshells and they keep getting crunched. It's there's a reason why they've been off and on for the past 6 years, like you said. Moving
Yeah,
up from
yeah.
there,
Just one
yeah,
one quick note about that. Yeah, currently I'm very optimistic, but right now I think after week 1 of preseason, we literally do not have any receivers. We've been picking them up off the streets, and they've been getting hurt too. So we literally probably have the worst receiving core in the league right now.
Thaddeus, I heard that tryouts are next Monday for wide receivers.
I'm down. I'm coming down.
Yeah.
And yet it was the Cleveland Browns that picked up Isaiah Bond.
Yeah.
Weird. Uh, uh, so moving up to second, I'm going to take the Cardinals. I agree with everything you said, David. They are definitely trending in the right direction. Is Kyler Murray the guy? I don't think he is, but they were putting the entire franchise on his shoulders. They kind of moved the focus of that franchise onto the defensive side to keep them in games, not to try and outscore opponents. So I think the Cardinals will improve up to second place in this division. Kyler Murray's not going to have to shoulder the load, and it's not all on him. If they lose a game, he can be more relaxed and be more freewheeling, which is his playing style in the NFL. It's not a system style quarterback. He is a freelance quarterback, and he's going to be able to play freely, knowing that his defense is not complete garbage if he doesn't score every time down the field. And then that leaves the Rams for number one. They've got too many weapons. They are three deep on the in the wide receiver room, with Jordan Whittington being the third. And we've seen what Sean McVay's been able to do when he has three, at least one deep threat and two scat guys. We've seen what he can do with that, and it's all good things. And the other part I mentioned before about Seattle, the Rams very quietly have been able to cycle the roster up every time they lose a piece or somebody gets a little too expensive. They've been able to cycle in new blood at lower cost so they can keep the train moving, as opposed to trying to hang on to everybody and then just have to pay the piper, 10 years down the line. So with Matthew Stafford, it's maybe his final season. We'll see how beat up he gets, but with him there running that offense and them being able to be solid on defense, they don't even have to be spectacular. They just need to be solid. I think the Rams win this division. So I've got Rams, Cardinals, 49ers, and Seahawks.
All right, yeah, I think this is going to be probably the most interesting division in the NFL, and yeah, I mean, you could see based off of our picks here, we are a little scattered, but some things we do have in common, including Seattle being garbage. But uh, this is the NFC, folks, and this is our opinions. Once again, we'll find out, at the end of the year if our opinions are right. And yeah, let us know your opinions as well in the comments. If you think that we're right or we're not at all. I mean, because we very well could be wrong on a lot of ours. There could be teams that we think are going to slump that could be Super Bowl contenders at the end of the year. That's just how the NFL is. So I'm looking forward to it. I know you guys are looking forward to it. Don't forget, next week is AFC. If you want to also drop in the comments on some early predictions there, I'd love to hear that. And before we get out of here, I want to give a huge shout out to our very own David Street, who helped us out with that kick-ass intro. That was awesome, David. So thank you for putting in time and effort for that. I really do appreciate that for us here on the show. So thanks for doing that. And tune in, guys, next week for our AFC special. And until next time, guys, that is the final whistle. We will catch you next week.